Hey, Brian from SnakeBytes here. I've traveled all the way to Missouri to see Ben Rennick's amazing collection. In this week's show, I'm going to show you his incredible animals. You're watching SnakeBytes. All right, guys, Ben keeps a whole lot of really cool animals, but one of the things I think that's really awesome I'm about to show you guys is the fact that he keeps some anacondas. Now, there's not that many people around that keep anacondas anymore, and what's really cool is he has this gem here. Oh, she's a little bit dicey, so I have to be careful, or she will come out and get me. I try to get her on the ground without getting big here, guys. Ah, here she is. Look at that animal right there. This is actually a caramel albino green anaconda. Now these guys come from South America, and these are the animals that people talk about, the monsters down there. Now they're not the longest snake in the world, but they're certainly the fattest snake in the world. And this girl's 6 years old now, and you can just tell she's ready to tee me up. So I'm gonna be as careful as I possibly can be. But she's gonna get really large. Now she's probably gonna be able to breed next year, and they have live young. But man, what an adorable snake. And again, you gotta be so careful because they'll strike in really weird angles. And again, you can just see that tongue is coming out. She's kind of coiling a little bit. If I get too close, trust me, it's gonna be a really ugly bite. So let's see if we can maneuver around this girl and get her back in her home without hurting her. And more importantly, you're not getting bit. Oh. Come on, girl. Come on. Up you go. Up you go. Oh. 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 This is when it gets ugly right here. Oh. Come on, girl. There you go. Oh. What a beauty. Oh. Back inside. Oh, wow. Now that's impressive as it can be. What length was the largest anaconda ever officially recorded at? A, 22 feet, B, 27 feet, or C, 17 feet? Go ahead and comment down below and check back later in the show to see if you have the correct answer. Each week with our friends over at the Reptile Report, we'll be highlighting a cool animal forum for you guys to learn more about. This week's spotlight is ballpythons.net. Go ahead and check it out at the URL down below or click the link in the description. All right, what a lucky thing that I didn't get bit by that albino girl. But Ben tells me I might not be so lucky with this guy right here. So I'm going to be really careful and see if I can get this guy out. Now this is a really amazing animal here. You can see this is the boyfriend to that albino, and I guess he's got a pretty bad attitude. Now this is actually an anuthristic anaconda. Oh, yeah, you can just tell, not in the family jewels, buddy. Okay, so what the deal is with this guy is he's anuthristic, and he's basically axanthic as well, basically meaning that he's missing both the red pigment and the yellow pigment, and he's going to be a great mate for that albino girl because eventually might be able to get some snow anacondas. And again, these guys are just so dicey, and for whatever reason, they keep on wanting to go for my face. And again, the problem with anaconda bites, as you can just see, is that they typically hold on, and when they bite you, it can really come back on you hard. And just that little nip caused all that blood. You can imagine if it was a full-on bite and coil, it's gonna be pretty painful. But I tell you what, I'm leaking a little bit here, guys, and I still have to get him back in his cage. And he's definitely fired up now. Oh, you can just see he's ready to roll. See if we can just slowly pick him up, and hopefully we can get him back in his cage. Oh. Come on, guy. Come on, guy. Oh, get back. Come on. Oh. Anacondas are really interesting because they'll strike in any angle at all, so you gotta be really careful. And we're gonna slowly get him back. Ooh, he's coiling me now, which means I might be in trouble. Fortunately, he's letting go. Guys, I tell you what, that little nip really caused quite a bit of damage. But I tell you what, That's an amazing animal right there. Sticking with anacondas, but moving on to the smaller cousin of the green anacondas are the yellow anacondas. Now these guys don't get nearly as big, maybe about 10 foot, but they still get pretty heavy body. Now this happens to be a kind of special yellow anaconda too. As you can see with his mouth opening right now, has the same attitude as some of the other yellow anacondas that I've seen. Now this guy is special because it's what they call a patternless anaconda. And it's a recessive mutation, and I have to be really careful because this guy is acting like it wants to take a pop at me again. And I've already been bit once today. We'll see if I can avoid it. Now the deal is that a zoo over in Europe actually bred two normal anacondas together, and they popped out these patternless babies. Again, it's a recessive mutation. It's very similar to the green Burmese mutation, and so when you breed two of these guys together, you're gonna get more patternless yellows. What a beautiful animal, huh? And so far, I've been pretty lucky to not get bit. But again, anacondas are really unpredictable. So even from this angle right here, he can definitely get me. Gotta get him back in his cage if I can. Let's see what I can get. Whew. Oh, man, this is gonna be a close call here. Whew. Come on. Now that's a fun time. I love those anacondas. The thing I love about these guys' collection is that, sure, they're kind of known for ball pythons, but they also do a lot of the big snakes, like the anacondas and a bunch of really cool reticulated pythons as well. This happens to be a really cool animal here. This is an albino sun tiger het titanium or citron. Just look at how this thing glows. I tell you what, retics are amazing animals. When you start putting genetics like this behind them, holy cow, that thing is like fluorescent. It's just popping so much. What a cool snake. Now this is one gorgeous snake right here. This is actually a ghost reticulated python. It's actually a recessive mutation, and Ben was the first person to prove this guy out back in 2010. He's bred it into a handful of other mutations now, and I think there's gonna be some really good things to come. You can certainly tell how beautiful this snake is. All right, this is another beautiful reticulated python. I've said how much I love golden child retics, and this is one step further. This is actually a golden child tiger. So again, you've got two codominant mutations, but that tiger gene really adds a lot to the golden child. Just look at the head on that animal and the cool pattern. I tell you what, the iridescence is mind-blowing too. These are some really cool reticulated pythons. Now this is a cool animal here. You guys know that I love Burmese pythons, being that a Burmese python was the first snake that I ever bought. This happens to be a hypo Burmese pythons. Now these are interesting because they're codominant mutations, and when you breed two hypos together, you're gonna get a white snake. Now what's really interesting is there's really three versions of that white snake. There's an ivory, a black-eyed leucistic, and then a blue-eyed leucistic. And they all are somewhat related to the hypo or fire gene. But it's just a shame that you can't buy Burmese pythons across state lines anymore because they were recently added to the Lacey Act. I tell you what, this is a gorgeous animal. It just sucks that I'm not able to buy them anymore. All right, let's move on to something that I'm a little more familiar with, and that's ball pythons. Ben has some amazing animals in here. I can't wait to show you, starting with this little girl right here. This is actually a calico killer queen, which is a pretty amazing combination right there. The calico gene is codominant, and of course it's a super pastel lesser spider. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I tell you what, he bred this to some pretty cool animal this year. Can't wait to see what he comes up with. I always love collections of snakes when they have unique animals that you'll only see at that particular place, and this certainly is one of those animals. This is a super pastel lesser calico pinstripe spider plus. That's a lot to say. There's actually 6 genes going on in this animal, and I tell you what, that's one impressive snake. This is just a single gene animal, but it happens to be a really cool single gene animal. It's called a tri-stripe, and it's a recessive mutation that was proved out a few years ago from the Sutherlands. And what's really unique, obviously, is the fact that it has this really big, broad black stripe down it. Now, there's not that many of them out there, and that's what makes this a really cool animal to check out. I tell you what, the mutations that are going to be coming from this tri-stripe are going to be unbelievably epic. take a look at this gorgeous animal right here. What we have is a Calico Spinner Blast Plus. Now the Plus gene is something that Ben's working on that's kind of an enhancer gene, and I think it does some really amazing things to animals. So I think there's going to be a really big future in it for sure. And this animal here happens to be a Pastel Calico Spider Pinstripe Plus. Now he's working with a whole bunch of really cool calico animals, so let's go ahead and take a look at a quick montage of them. Moving on to champagne stuff. Now champagnes are interesting because they're a codominant mutation, and when we brought in our first champagnes, we never would have expected them to be a codominant mutation, which basically just means when you breed a champagne to a normal or other mutations, about half the babies come out champagne first generation. Now this happens to be our gargoyle champagne, which is basically a het red axanthic cinnamon pastel champagne, so it's a triple codom animal. But what's interesting about a lot of champagnes, and you certainly see it with this animal, is that increased amount of white, or almost like pied. Now I'm not really sure why we see that piebald coming out in these animals, but you see it an awful lot in certain champagne mutations, and this one is pretty cool. Now this is a really cool champagne animal here, and to be honest with you, we're not exactly sure what it is. It was actually a het red axanthic champagne bred to a Calico Lemon Blast, so there could be all kinds of genes going on in here, and that's one of the things that's interesting about champagnes, is sometimes they kind of mask a whole bunch of stuff. So this animal could actually be a Lemon Blast het red champagne, and you can see it has that really cool two-face thing going on that I've really never seen before, and of course that big pied patch. Again, champagnes are cool. Here's a montage of some of the cool ones he's working with. On to the desert gene. Now deserts are kind of an interesting animal in the fact that they're a codominant mutation, but unfortunately a lot of people, myself included, feel that the females won't produce viable eggs. There's never been an actual viable clutch that's proven that happens to be a desert. There's a lot of controversy about this, and I don't want to get into it whatsoever, but the fact is that the males are really still viable. It's still really incredible. The females are more or less just really pets as far as I'm concerned. This happens to be a desert spinner with a possible entry gene in it. And again, that desert gene really cleans things up and kind of reduces things as well. You can see how reduced this pattern is and just uber clean it is. That's one really cool snake. This probably happens to be my favorite desert mutation, and to be honest with you, prior to coming here, I didn't even know it existed. This is a desert red axanthic. Ben has a lot of stuff going on with the red axanthic, and he definitely hit a home run on this one. I just love the way this pattern and mutation molds together. Now this happens to be a gorgeous animal. This is a spot-nosed clown, and it's the only one in existence. And I want to highlight some spot-nosed projects. Now spot-nose happen to be a codominant mutation with the superform being called the Powerball. But I tell you what, the spot-nose and the clown mixed together, that's one cool snake. This guy is really cool. This is a Pastel Lesser Spot Nose Plus. So there's a bunch of genes going on, but that spot nose interacting with all those other genes just make a really busy pattern. It's got the really cool flames coming up the sides. It's definitely a little feisty bugger too, huh? as you can see, there's a bunch of babies hatching here, and I have a feeling it's going to be an exciting year for BHB Reptiles. If you want to keep updated on all of their progress, just go ahead and hit them up over at benradnick.com. I can't thank them enough for showing us around. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I tell you what, it's time to get back to my collection. What length was the largest anaconda ever officially recorded at? If you said C, 17 feet, you're 100% correct. Good job.
Alright guys, this week you got to see Brian wrangle some big anacondas and retics and do some pretty daring stuff that a lot of people wouldn't even touch. I want to hear your daring stories. What have you done that was really daring? Leave a comment below and let us know.
So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. What an amazing collection of animals. And as always, I was Facebook and tweeting pictures along the way. So if you ever want to follow any of my animal adventures, make sure to hit me up over on Facebook and Twitter at SnakeBytesTV. Until next week, you've been watching Snake Bites. Exactly a cutting-edge new project, but still every time I produce one of these beauties, I get super excited. And this is a blue-eye leucistic. This one is a little bit different than the